for stories that I connect with, or movies or games, books. They're always very, very specific, and I feel like that is, even if I don't understand the cultural touch points, it's universal in a way where I'm like, oh, this feels like a real, quote unquote real place or a real character, because they're very specific with their experiences. And I think that's also more interesting in a game setting too, to get some of those, even if you don't understand it. I feel like there's like a certain themes that are definitely universal, with, even if you don't have a parent exactly like this, you can kind of see how this dynamic could work, or you've seen it in a movie, or you've seen it in other media.
Welcome, citizens, to LenaWorks.
It's time to rid the world of cooking once and for all.
Please visit your nearest loyalty officer to sign over your human rights.
What is it?
My sisters. I thought they were going to keep their filthy little hands out of my business. Look around. Nobody wants to cook anymore. They want convenience.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Savepoint Stories, my podcast where I talk with folks in and around the game space. And today I have a very special guest who I've been very much looking forward to talking to. I'd like to introduce and welcome the co-founder and creative director of Outerloop Games, Eka. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. Let's see. We're recording this a week from launch. So yeah, excited, nervous.
Exciting times, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I mean, you just recently, we're here to talk about Dosa Divas, your game from Outerloop Games, about to launch. And I know the journey's kind of been my introduction to the journey. I'm very curious from your side, but I was introduced to it last year at Summer Games Fest in 2025.
Right. We hung out there, yeah.
Yeah, got a chance to meet you for a minute, and since then I've been kind of trying to keep close tabs on it. I've seen you guys do the Next Fest demo. You had that out in the wild, and now we're getting close to launch. What's the journey been for Dosa Divas and for you and for the studio?
We launched Thirsty Suitors, let's see, is it end of November 23, and we knew we were going to make this game, so in January we took some time off, and January started on Dosa Divas, so January 2024, so it'll be 2 years and 4 months start to finish, which is pretty quick for us. There's definitely some challenges, because this game, while it's a similar, or maybe a spiritual successor to Thirsty, there was a bunch of neat things we tried, especially with the kind of rebuilding the combat system, the cooking, and of course there's exploration and level design with a mech that just changed how we laid out levels and the perspective of the cameras and things that were all new. Story's different, so also cracking story always takes us probably a good year, so that went through a lot of rework to figure out the narrative. And I mean, we knew sort of roughly where it was going to go, but actually writing and figuring that out always takes time, and once you sort of mix it with the gameplay, trying to pace all that out it's just iteration time.
Yeah, but 2 years is relatively, just for perspective from the gaming side. I know that's a quicker turnaround than most games. Is that incorrect, or is that
I think for a game of this scale, yeah, Thirsty took us, I think, three years, maybe 3.5 from concept to release. So mostly the same team, so 14 of us on the dev side. Then we bring in QA and of course people like Pop Agenda and other folks at the end of it, but 14 folks on this project, that's fairly quick. And I think because we've the studio is 9 years old, it's our third game, and we generally been using the same set of tools and engine and things, so it's been quicker for us to prototype and get figure things out earlier. When you have the same team on multiple projects, we kind of, everything's shorthand, and
there's value in that, right?
There's definitely value. I'm a huge fan of that, for sure. Yeah.
And that's something I kind of wanted to touch on. I feel like to understand this game that I want to talk about, Dosa Divas, I feel like we need to understand the studio behind it. So can you talk a little bit about like Outerloop Games' mission statement and like how has the studio been come together and taken this journey a little bit? Can you share a little bit of insight on that?
Yeah. So myself and my two co-founders, Justin, who's our lead programmer, and Azo, who's our animator slash parkour slash climber slash juggler. We had been working together at a previous company in the Seattle area, and with Azo, I first worked with them like 3 companies ago out of art school in Laguna Beach, a place called Shiny Entertainment, and I've been kind of bringing him to every studio I go. I was like, hey, come on up, let's be a fun project. So but the 3 of us have worked together for a number of years, and I pitched him like years ago, like, hey, what do you think about starting a studio? I think the 3 of us could make a really bad game if we had to, because like I do art design, Justin's our programmer, and Aza does animation, and we bring in some sound and effects. We could probably make a pretty small game. That was the pitch. So we put together a prototype while we were working at this other company in our spare time, and that became Falcon Age. And then we pitched that around. I think it was a PlayStation. It was a PlayStation VR game at the time as we started, and that's what started the studio. And then we grew from there. So it was like 7 of us on that project, and then we were figuring out what we're to do next, and felt like we needed to grow a little bigger just to make the game we wanted to make it, which was Thirsty. So we grew to 14. Brought some more folks on, and I think starting with that crew on Dosa Divas made it real easy to get it up and running and figure out what the scale of it was. Working with the same people over longer periods of time makes everything go faster.
Also from the journey through Falcon's Age, Thirsty Suitors, and now Dosa, I understand, like when I go to your page, the head mission statement of like, this is a minority-led, fully distributed indie game studio that creates accessible games.
Yeah.
Like, when did that, I guess, was that the identity from the get-go when you were pitching this as a studio, or was that something that you were you found as you were putting it together?
No, that was definitely a goal for me, because this is my 30 years in games. In I think October will be 30 years for me.
Oh, nice.
I started at Bethesda at 19 in 1996. I was there for 5 years. A place called Shiny Entertainment for 5 years, and then Gas Powered Games for 2, and then Uber Entertainment for 9. So in all those places, I was one or very few of the a minority of people of color on the team. And when I was thinking about starting a studio, I was like, oh, I think there's an interesting perspective, and there's enough stories that we don't see from certain perspectives. And largely based on who runs studios and who funds studios. So that was definitely a goal when we did Falcon Age, because Falcon Age it's a sci-fi setting, but it's about fighting colonizers and raising a falcon, and it's definitely inspired by British imperialism in South Asia and around the world, set in a fictional context. But I grew up in Sri Lanka, moved to the U.S. when I was 8, and a lot of the folks on the team are also immigrants, and so telling kind of immigrant stories has been just been our focus, but also just talking with folks on the team. And we're all remote, so we're all over the world. That's where the love for food and culture, because I feel like food is like the first touch point for a lot of folks for new cultures, and that's been our sort of gateway into talking about culture and telling these kind of stories is through food, and also love cooking, so it's also a big part of that.
Yeah, and it brings in all the different perspectives too. Yeah. And like seeing that journey of like from Falcon Age, Thirsty Suitors, and now where we're at, I kind of want to ask, and I'm trying to understand from a larger perspective, but like from your insight, what goes into keeping a game studio, one, let alone just like alive in this kind of atmosphere, but also, contrasting that with being able to give it the space it needs creatively while doing something sustainably and practically. Like, I'm curious how I think it's impressive when I see a studio go beyond 1 or 2 games. It's like you now have a space and you've been able to do it. And
Yeah.
like it's such a rarity, right?
It is, and it's hard.
Unfortunately.
I mean, like right now, I feel like it's been the worst I've seen it in terms of layoffs and how volatile the world is, and how, making games in this space with the kind of stories we tell has also been really difficult. I mean, for us, I think we're pretty good about hitting deadlines and figuring out the scope. I mean, every game is different, and it always ends up being bigger than you think it is. So, so that sort of the shared knowledge and experience helps a lot. It makes it easier, but it's still like every game, unless we're remaking the same game, it's always going to be like new challenges. And we switched to 4 days a week about 4 years ago, so in the beginning of Thirsty, and been trying to maintain that. And of course, near the end, it gets hard when we're working with external partners and people around the world. We go back to 5 days and sometimes a little bit more, like the last couple of weeks. But that's just kind of the norm. But we try to have a better balance as much as possible.
Okay. No, it's like, again, so much of what I didn't want to focus too much on like where the volatility of the industry is too much, but it is a reality that we kind of exist in. But in that, I see something with like Outerloop games, and it's so often we talk about those negative moments or those areas of pain. But is that like what should we be shouting from the rooftops? What are the things that you're like, hey, we should see more of this? These are the things that are going well. Let's like crank that to 11 and make sure everyone is doing it. Like, what do you see from both your years of experience, but also heading the studio?
I think leaning into sort of the superpowers of people on your team. Having a smaller team means everybody gets to see their contribution on screen in the game, and sort of leaving those open. Like while we have sort of a creative direction for each project, there's been folks on the team like Asa with his animation work. It's always going to be something wild. So we try to integrate that into the narrative. Hassan, who's our main writer on Dosa, who's just done amazing work. So things he brings, we try to integrate into gameplay. So it's just like leaving those while we have a direction, but leaving it open enough so folks can contribute what they do really well. And that's been sort of our goal from the get-go, and also trying to keep a team together as long as possible. I feel it's super beneficial, and you see this around the industry for teams that have kind of been making their first or second and third games or fourth games, that they are they find their groove. I think treating people well, let them shine with what they do well, and then try to keep a team together. That's our goal.
The core principles.
Our ambition for every game is like, hopefully we make another one. Everything else, we can't control, but we can try to make experiences as interesting as possible for players.
Of course. And I tried to in preparation for this interview too, I wanted to very much, the themes of food are so prevalent in your game, in Dosa Divas. And this interview, I wanted to treat a little bit like a meal. This beginning, talking about your studio is a little bit of the appetizer. So I want to get into the main dish now, which is Dosa Divas. So with that, like, what sparked that the initial inception of this game? Where was the lifeblood, or where did it start with?
I used to keep a Google Doc of ideas. So every time like something, while I'm walking the dog or whatever, just like a kernel of a thought, I would just put it down. But then, with a team of 14, we're all over from West Coast Seattle to East and West Canada, East Coast US, Beijing, Brisbane, Australia. So we're kind of all over the place. North Carolina, San Francisco. And so we used Miro, which is like this collaborative tool. It's like a whiteboard tool. That's all our design work is done in there. So when folks in like Australia and China wake up, they can see what's changed. And we've been using that for design meetings and planning out both Thirsty and Dosa. And I have a separate board that's like ideas board. And some point during the end of Thirsty, I was like, had a thought about two aunties in a mech, and I was like, ooh, that sounds great. I don't remember where it came from. It just was kind of, I don't know where ideas come from, but like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
They
hey,
come from everywhere.
They come from everywhere, and I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. Mostly, like, you know, I think while working on Thirsty, and you know, we had a character named Auntie Chandra, who's like this older character that was so fun, and the writers did a great job with that. And I was like, oh, what if we did a game about kind of two older women piloting a mech, because that sounded interesting. And so threw that idea down on just on Miro, and then it started to think about reference for like, okay, if it's a world full of mechs, what does that mean? You know, what are some mech references, mech lore, anime mechs, and other stories we like Evangelion, you know, and a bunch of other things like, you know, Gundam. So just kind of, usually when we have a sort of an idea, I'll start getting reference and start talking to people on the team. I'll pitch it just to like one person at a time, and then, you know, because ideas are really fragile in the beginning, so you have to be like open for it to develop into something more solid. So
Sure.
Each time I pitch to somebody, they'll add their own thoughts on it. I was like, ooh, and then we'll just, that idea grew into like, oh, it's about this. Initially it was actually three sisters, like two sisters on their journey to find their third sister. So the mech actually had a cockpit of three. One was missing, and so we had a Vijay, our concept artist, who does all their 2D stuff and all the designs for the characters and worlds. Like, so he's one of the first people I'll talk to, and he'll like sketch things up, and we'll go back and forth and references, and so yeah, it just kind of builds. It kind of builds from there, and then I'll talk to other dev friends outside the, you know, our team, and just like get fresh perspective on their thinking, and we just kind of go. Yeah, it takes about a year for it to like turn into something that is okay. I think we have a structure for it. We don't know all the parts, but we know sort of the arc and the themes and what we want to explore. And like with Thirsty and Falcon Age, for us, family dynamics and family drama and reconciliation as themes are been really fun to explore, because those are for me are more the higher stakes drama in stories, rather than like saving the world or whatever. That feels, I don't think, you know, the specificity is important, so that felt more like easier to connect with.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on that family dynamic, and it's something that I'm still about, I don't know, like 5-6 hours in through
Mm-hmm.
my playthrough, and
Yeah.
one thing I immediately picked up, I'm Iranian, and the cultural nuances of how family communicates with one another.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain things that I'm always like, unless I feel like there's always a danger of like, when you really are trying to convey that in whatever the medium or art or the story is, sometimes it leans too hard into stereotypes and tropes.
Yeah.
But you handle like this team, you and your team handle it so well, where like those little nuances, I immediately was like, that's, you know, okay, I get the, you know, the cultural, you know, dynamic there with this and with that. And I just, you know, it was something I appreciated very much from a subtle standpoint. Like, there's certain elements of this game that are just like, hey, we're right in your face.
Yeah.
You know, the food themes, you know, are prevalent just in general, but some of those specificities of like the culture aspect, I really admired how you and your team navigated. Was that, I guess my question with that is, how was that dynamic? Were you always teetering the line of like how hard or soft to go with certain nuances of that?
I mean, I think for us, we always try to get more specific, because I mean, I think this has been sort of a theme in Thirsty and Falcon Age, which was like, we think specificity is universal. I know someone famous said that, but I don't remember who. But it's definitely like for stories that I you know, connect with, or movies or games, books. They're always very specific, and I feel like that is, even if I don't understand the cultural touch points, it's universal in a way where I'm like, oh, this feels like a real, you know, quote unquote real place or a real character, because they're very specific with their experiences. And I think that's also more interesting in a game setting too, to get some of those, even if you don't understand it. I feel like there's like a certain themes that are definitely universal. With even if you don't have a parent exactly like this, you can kind of see how this dynamic could work, or you've seen it in a movie, or you've seen it in other media. So like going for those very specific storytelling and characters and personalities, instead of trying to be like, oh, we can try to make this character fit this mold, which, if you watch like a 30-second commercial, you'll see like tropey characters. That's because that's just, you have to kind of get across these personalities as quickly as possible. And for us, like, if you're going to spend, I think this game, we've been saying about 12 to 15 hours, based on what, other playtesting and feedback, you'll get a chance to explore some of these characters and their facets of them. So we definitely try to make them layered over that course of time. It's like watching a season of a show. Yeah, see kind of different sides of personalities of a character, and that's specificity is always our goal.
Yeah, with that point too, I think when you draw more towards such a specific and unique kind of like personal story with individual characters and everything, then you're like, I'm left with the thought that the people making this game, there's something that they put into it. Like that, you can't, when you speak more broadly, it just feels like you're aiming for kind of like a general cone of information. Like, that's generally where it is. But when you get really into the weeds of it, you're like, they drew from somewhere with that. That came from something. And I both appreciate it, but I also now get to know those people a little bit, more. And that helps me always, like I've said it in a lot of my work, of like understanding the work that goes into it, or the people that go into it, like enriches the experiences for me with whatever the art is, whether it be a music album I'm listening to, or a film, or a game. And so that's always wild. I do have a question. You were mentioning earlier your animation work on this. I've been watching your socials and clips lately, and there was a few clips where you were showing like the wall running or the fishing animation. Is that what you were referring to, where like the individual would do a little bit of a choreography in real IRL, and then it would translate to the game? Or are you talking about a different aspect?
No, he actually do those things after he he's our animation team of one. He'll animate. That's all hand keyed. Same in Thirsty. Like he's the only animator on the project, and but he also do those things in real life where he'll like wall run, and like he does wushu and juggling and skateboarding, and
it's impressive.
Super impressive. He's the most impressive person I know.
Does he do that also for all the I know, like when you're in the combat, there's like the little movements of the enemies and the characters. Does he do any of that as well?
I mean, he's done, I think he kind of goes through different hobbies, and most recently he's into rock climbing. So that's like his whole Instagram is all just like climbing things. But used to do like this reel where he would jump over cars and skateboard while juggling, and just all sorts of weird mix of martial arts and gymnastics and parkour stuff. But he's also a tremendous animator, because he also does that, by hand, and then he'll try to recreate his moves that he's already animated in real life. So it's like, it's not mocap like, people like will do the move and then mimic it. He does it the other way around, which is just weird, and that's him. So
he's like turning art to life.
Yeah. Exactly.
And something else you hit on with the ideation process of all this, like it started with that idea that you said of two sisters and a mech, or two aunties, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah.
How, as you're going further with the ideation, you mentioned like getting a visual, turning into a visual element, getting your artist involved. Does that ground it in some way, or is that element? Is that why you go there? Is that he helps you visualize it and see it in practicality? Or?
Yeah, and usually I'll gather some references of things that I've been thinking about, and I think I have this on the board. I have this like my favorite aunties from various shows and movies, and there's some like Bollywood references and like Never Have I Ever and what's the there's a couple of kind of kung fu movies that I've referenced, and some of those kind of we keep bringing into like, oh, it's someone like this.
Got it. Okay.
Turning Red, was it Turning Red? Is the name of the Disney movie? Can't remember. About a panda, red panda.
Oh yeah. I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. The animated
some really
picture.
Great, like aunties. That one. There was one reference for that. I'll grab a bunch of reference when I think about the idea, and then I'll chat with Vijay, and then we'll go back and forth on sort of like the look and feel, and that does solidify things. And then then as Hassan started writing, and the narrative team's myself, Sunny, who's also just amazing, talented producer, designer, writer, gameplay, scripter, and a bunch of things. So the three of us kind of sit down and just plan out the game, and then as Hassan comes back for character thoughts, and we just kind of solidify it. And then now we know sort of like, once we know what the characters are like, there are certain things that are like, oh, of course she would do this, or of course they would act this way, because that's just like in their personality. So the game kind of tells us where it wants to go once we spend the time to kind of flesh out these characters in the world. Then it's like, oh, it only makes sense if we go this direction. Only makes sense if we go this direction. And so there's a bunch of thoughts to the ending that I'm not going to spoil, but like it's changed from where we thought it was going to go. Thematically, still ends at the right place. It's just how the specifics of how we ended it changed a bunch.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that seems very much. Is that a general concept you've learned over the years, or that it's common practice to start with the harder the story and then build from that? Because I know sometimes I'll anecdotally hear stories where people just are like, I want this kind of like, this is the mechanic I'm working with, and then building a story around that. I feel like very much of what you're doing is quite the opposite. It's like, what would the story be and what serves that better?
We don't write till it's mechanically there. So like it's easier to write story around gameplay than it is to do gameplay around story. From our perspective, and have been on projects like, I was on 2 Matrix games when Reloaded and Revolutions came out. And so like for that, it was like, story is this, design a game around it, and it's so much harder. Because games and linear media are very, very different. Because there's like, the player is a big part of it because they influence it. So player expression is so important. That's been a goal for every one of our games. So you probably see from Thirsty to this, the combat system is way more more expressive. The cooking system, you can mix and match ingredients, is a little more expressive. Exploration, I wouldn't call it platforming, but there's jumping, double jumping, and other ways of getting around and exploring. So player expression is a big part of our sort of goal with each game, but then wrapping a narrative that we feel like we can do a pretty decent job, at least based on the feedback. So we have sort of kernels and thoughts of sort of where the pacing of the thing is going to go, the actual words, and how it interplays with the mechanics of that section. We kind of go hand in hand at the same time. So I'll kind of do like, hey, here's what I mechanically want to do in this space. And we know sort of generally where we want to be over the overall story. And then Hassan will like have his thoughts like, oh, what if we do this? What if we have a reasoning? So it's always like, how do we blend the theme and mechanics as well as possible? And that it goes into the combat system with the flavoring, the attacks and defenses. It goes into the exploration, picking up ingredients. It goes into the cooking, using those ingredients to cook dishes that go back to feeding the NPCs, and then also using them in battle for healing or buffing and debuffing. So this game, I feel like we did a better job than we did in Thirsty in terms of like blending the sort of the theme, story, mechanics. Hopefully feel more cohesive than, even though there's 3 parts of the game: the exploration on mech, the cooking with Goddess, and then the combat. Hopefully as you're playing it, you feel like they don't feel like 3 different things. They feel like part of the same game. No,
it does feel like I wanted to talk about the food as a whole, but it kind of is in all parts of it. But in the cooking part of it, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but the first times I was doing a new dish or any dish, for instance, I know it goes through a bit of a mini game. Like you go through a series of variety of mini games, and I think maybe I missed it, but there wasn't always like a clear, this is how you do this one. And it felt to me like, hey, when you're the first time you're cooking a dish, you're kind of figuring that out. And then you're like, oh, I got this. And then you throw in a new, you're like, all right, we're gonna make a variation on this dish. And when you do, I just got a curveball thrown at me of like, oh, now you got this other mechanic to it. Or this. And it just felt like translation of like life elements or like these things like food, for instance. I recently played like Consume Me, and that was very much
I love Consume Me.
That was such an amazing light, and like I thought of this in the same vein of you translating elements of like how I have life experiences into a game play element that evokes a similar feeling in its own way. And I thought that was impressive there with just the cooking part of it. So that was intentional?
Yeah, it was intentional. I mean, it's the setup is like Sam and Amani haven't, they've been apart for 10 years and they haven't cooked together, and so Sam is a little like, Amani is the chef, right? The big chef. And even in the first scene, I think, Amani starts like, hey, that's not, you should have pruned this differently. And then Sam's like, oh, sorry, chef. And then Amani catches herself. So it's like, oh, I'm not that person anymore. Let me hang out with my sister. That's the goal. And let's go see our parents. That's the goal. And mechanically, yes. How does that translate into battle? And also the cooking. The cooking has, I think, 8 or 9 different mini games that we bring up. You get, the first time we always do a hand wash in all our games. So it's like, in the first time you cook with Sam and Amani at that beginning scene, it's like there's like a waterfall with a hand wash, so they're all washing hands, including Goddess Samek. And then I think we do like 6 steps for there. But then any sort of new recipes, other recipes, like you get 2 of the 8 mini games. And sort of their tuning, it changes every time too. So like, there's the sort of where when you press the buttons and how big some of the for chopping or peppering or flipping the pan, it all there's changes on every play. And we knew some of them were harder, but we also knew from playtesting that you get more used to it and the timing. That's also part of sort of like Sam and Amani coming together over the course of the story was it's subtle, but it's like also like we know the player will learn to do this over time as long as it's not too frustrating in the beginning, and because it's so quick, it's okay if you don't get it, because you'll get another chance. You'll get hundreds of chances if you want to. No, I've been going back and forth with it. I'm like, I'm gonna figure this dish out. But then from the combat side, like what can you kind of help me understand why turn-based combat specifically? Because I know you did a little bit of that before. Yes.
And this is its own variation on it, and you do some changes to it. So like, why did you lean in that direction? Yeah,
so for Thirsty, it did come out of the idea of like, oh, we want to make a game about fighting your exes and relationships. How do we do that? And a lot of it is also kind of the story to theme to mechanics. It's like with Thirsty, we're like, oh, turn-based may be a great approach to this because the moves you do is as important as the dialogue choices you do in between battles or in between moves. And that was we kind of played with that, and I was like, oh, this is a kind of really cool expressive way to say something to your mom in between cooking, or to one of your exes, or the idea of sort of and we do this in this game too, where you battle people, either a family or people that you used to work with. They used to run a restaurant 10 years ago, and you had a big falling out. So it's like, our memories aren't they're faulty, right? Like I have a different feeling of how we had a falling out than you did, right? Like, so that exploring that was also really fun in turn-based, and so we like how that felt in Thirsty, and we wanted to carry that over for Dosa, because we like that storytelling, dialogue, back and forth, banter in between
rhythm.
These. There's definitely a rhythm to it. And speaking of rhythm and cooking, a lot of the mini games also like are on the beat. So where you hit the button is goes to the beat of the music, and there's piece of music for each town, each village as well.
Oh, I got to pay attention to that. The cookie, I didn't notice that.
We don't talk about it because we don't call it a rhythm game because people have a different idea of what it's called rhythm game. But
fair.
But that's the same thing we had in Thirsty too. Like all the battles and everything had like all when you press the button is always on a beat or half beat. Yeah.
Okay. I have this question, and it's pertaining to your game, but I'm kind of going a little bit bigger, so stick with me.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about it, and I see it oftentimes when you're on the gamer or the player side, and then there's the developer side. So when I see some of the combat with Dosa Divas, I think of like a Bravery Default, I think of Octopath, I think of Persona, and other games come to mind. Just you're like, hey, familiar moments, familiar. But I'm always seeing like when you're looking at a game and the conversation around it comes around, where it's like, hey, should you try? What is Dosa Divas or what is X game or Y game?
Yeah.
You're like, it's like this, but like insert difference here.
Yeah.
And that never, for me, and this is where I'm kind of like leading, is it never felt, it felt like it was downplaying what that game was. It's like, let's just look at the differences potentially, as opposed to what is this game? It's more than just those like, hey, it's that, but with this little extra element or this difference.
Yeah.
But when I've talked to numerous developers, and it's ebbed and flowed, but they're always so eager to talk about like the inspirations that went into the game and like where they're drawing from.
Yeah.
Like, what's your perspective on how we compare versus how much we talk about inspiration and like just in development, just as a whole? It's something I'm trying to understand and I'm navigating.
Yeah, I think if you gave the concept of here's the design doc for Paper Mario to 10 different studios, you'd probably get 10 different versions, because while we sort of like want to follow inspiration, we have our natural tendencies and likes and dislikes and abilities and skills, right? So we lean into those as much as possible, and it's going to feel totally different. And Mario RPG, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door was a big inspiration for Thirsty, and definitely for Dosa. For Dosa, we always wanted to kind of look at like, I've been calling it genre comfort. Like, hey, if people liked Octopath or Mario RPG remake recently, or Sea of Stars, would they like this? And that was sort of like, we want to find those players. And while I've never finished a Persona, building Thirsty was very much like, hey, I love these kind of games. Can we make a tight storier version that you can play in 10 hours? In the case of Dosa, 12 to 15 hours. And that was also a goal. So internally for Thirsty, I called it a baby Yakuza game, because I love the Yakuza series, and Like a Dragon actually was probably the first one I finished, and I really like, there's this narrative, a linear narrative, but there's all these elements of mini games and all these things you can do that ties into the theme of the characters in the world, and that's been our goal for Thirsty. And also kind of what worked in Thirsty, what didn't. I think I read everything, I read every comment. I know it's not healthy, but like I like that feedback. Read all the reviews, and the big takeaway for us was like, okay, it felt like 3 different games: skating, combat, the cooking, and we want to try to tighten those. Skating was probably the thing that like either you loved it or hated it, and I don't know, we did a great job of making that work within the game. And it's like, it was a lot. It was too many things. So let's like simplify it. Let's take the good parts. Cooking and connecting, I think we can do well. Mechanically it's different. And then for the combat, people were like, oh, it felt like QTEs. And we're like, it's okay, let's just try. Let's take that system and then add an active blocking, active for defending, or active attacking and blocking. So we had this perfect blocks and partial blocks. And then the skill system using these flavor-based attacks. And it's also, going from a single character versus the one or multiple. We're a party system, right? So we have Sam, Amani, and Goddess. So like, what makes them a party? What skills do they have? Where do they lean toward? And what does party combat look like? So that was the sort of the exploration part of this game, is more player expression, hopefully tighter balance between the whole game in terms of how the systems and mechanics and themes feed into each other. So definitely Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door, Mario RPG, Octopath, Bravely Default, Sea of Stars are all things that we enjoy, and we feel like players of those games will also. I'd only recently finished Expedition, which is a amazing game.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we showed this off at Summer Game Fest, I think it was like a couple months after that came out. So points of reference for everybody was Expedition.
Okay.
Which I'm like, great.
Combat.
I'm like, awesome. That's fine. If you want to compare to something that's just brilliantly made and did great, awesome. That's fine. And I think sort of the JRPG genre, there's been so many games. Yeah. And for a lot of folks, their first introduction to JRPG was Expedition. But there's been, years and decades of amazing.
There's a history behind it. Yeah, you seeing nowadays. I'm seeing so many like older games coming back, but trying to reinvent, the approach. And I see, in your game and in other games as well, taking inspiration from it. So that's where I'm always like that dichotomy of comparison and inspiration.
Yeah,
because I just naturally associate comparison with like theft of joy. There's like that quote, I think there's a healthy way to do it, of like, you don't have to compare to push something down to push something else up.
Yeah.
But there's a way to compare and like, hey, draw from this, as a familiarity point.
Yeah.
And then I can shorthand with you of like, okay, with that in mind, let's talk about X, Y, and Z that what you're doing here.
Yeah, so, and that's been our approach. I'm like, we don't mind the comparisons, because I feel like, but also if you're trying to remake, a Mario RPG, what's the point? They did it.
Yeah.
And they did it really, really well. And it's like, there's no way we could compete, or a great, I love Sea of Stars. Like, we're not trying to remake that. Or obviously Expedition, right? They're like, these are folks that are really, really great at their craft. There's no point making a clone or a copy of it. Just go play the original, and it's probably on sale. So, like, what's the point of saying, putting out a new game if we're just rehashing a thing? But like, but taking inspiration from it and look at things they did well, and for us, we think about this, like, mechanics are they have baggage, right? Like, if a character is running and jumping, you're like, oh, Mario, or platformer, right? Like, or if there's active blocking, people are like, oh, we always in our heads compare it to something, just like humans are. Like, we need to classify things and to make things fit into some neat box. Sometimes it doesn't, but like, there's going to be a point of reference, and that point of reference changes depending on whatever is the most visible or the most successful thing. And I didn't mind the Expedition comparisons, because it was just the hottest game that just reviewed amazingly well. So that's fine. Like, but we hadn't played it when we were building this. So, but
I'm glad you got a chance to play it.
Yeah. And I got to hang out with some of the devs at DICE recently. It was really cool chatting with them.
Oh, nice.
Talking about combat systems and things. And but like, their touch points and inspiration are also rooted in the same things we reference. So and they went a whole different direction with their sort of a French perspective and culture and storytelling.
And I think so much of that is the foundation, and then you're kind of like, what is my, what am I putting out that's unique to our team or to our effort? And I think that's the thing that is lost sometimes. And it's like, I feel like we need to remind folks is each of these games, while they're familiar, they're very much, they're putting their stamp, and they're like, okay, if I were to, one, I throw it to you, but like, it seems like such an achievement just to get a game made and shipped and like out.
Yeah.
And if you're getting that opportunity and you've worked so hard to do that, why would you do that and just do something that's already been done? You want to put some unique statement with it, right?
Yeah, unique statement. Also, just give the player a new experience, right? Like,
yeah.
I think the sort of go back to the genre comfort idea. It's like, yes, it's within this genre, but also, I feel like a game has to say something to, have an interesting world or interesting mechanics or interesting story or interesting visuals for it to stand on its own, even though it's kind of standing on the shoulder of giants and folks that came before, games that came before us. So.
That's how we get better.
Yeah, that's how we get better.
So I'd like to go into the dessert portion of this interview.
Okay.
I've just had like
we just did the
the
main course. Yeah.
Just last two questions for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned your history. I mean, I know you said later this year will be 30 years for you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of I saw your credits. I was like, Enter the Matrix. I have fond memories playing that. Earlier in my life. But you've also been involved in so many roles, right?
Yeah.
Like not just as creative director, but you've done so many different aspects of a game.
Yeah.
What is it now that excites you most, like, about the game making process? Like, is there a specific element of it that you're just like, oh, when we get to this part, I'm firing on all cylinders? Or
I love all the parts of making games, and I'm still like, I'm not. It's weird. I'm not jaded or tired of making games. It's been so fun. I mean, there's been definitely hard times of like projects or crunching earlier in my career on bigger teams. One thing I did discover, though, I like my hands in. I like to have 8-9 things going at once for the way my ADHD brain works. So I think that like being on a smaller team where we can like collaborate more and switch gears on different things on the daily is where I'm the happiest. So it's I love sort of concepting part of the original idea for games. Sort of the figuring out the design process. It's all like problem solving. So I think I enjoy problems and solving problems in creative ways. And finishing is hard, but also like it's so great to kind of come, be on the other side of it and be like, see how it came together, and seeing people, play our demo that's out on Steam, or getting early kind of feedback from players like yourself, playing through the game. It's very exciting. And we also like try to find a healthy detachment when it comes out, because while we spent all this 2 years building and crafting this thing, now it's really the players, and they could say and feel an way about it, and that's okay too. That's part of the process. So
it's part of the relationship it has at that point.
Yeah, and I think that they add their own perspective, and I think that's taken a long time for me to like be comfortable with. And no, I enjoy the process, but also like it again comes back to the team and just what we're excited about, what we want to say. Like we already know we have like 3 or 4 ideas for our next game, and we're still kind of figuring it out. But like all those conversations kind of happen as we're developing the current one too. We kind of think about, oh, this would be great. Let's save it for another game, or let's take this idea and put it into a whole different game. It will be fun to do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that idea board right now.
Oh yeah, it's got a lot of stuff on it.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And then last question, just kind of on the player side of it, the game's about to launch very soon. When players finish Dosa Divas, like what do you want them to carry, exiting that experience?
I hope they find a way to connect with the world and the story and the gameplay. But like hope they find something. I know there's going to be different aspects of the game that people will remember or hold on to, and that's okay. Like if you only enjoyed this, you'll enjoy the combat. Great, love it. You enjoy the story, you enjoy the cooking part of it. I think there's it's. I wouldn't say it's a go back to our food metaphor, not a full-on buffet, but we feel like we've had this structured meal that we prepared for you, and we invited you into our home and hope you leave full and happy.
No, that's beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time today, Eka.
Yeah.
Where can people find you and your team?
Yeah, I mean, Outerloop. We're mostly socials. We're on Blue Sky. We're on YouTube. Ekanaut, Ekanaut, or Outerloop Games. We're on Insta. We're on LinkedIn. I've been using more LinkedIn posts. We're on TikTok. We're on all the things as much as possible. Not on X. So
not there. Good. Okay. I'll make sure to also plug everything on this video. But again, I wanted to thank you for your time through the time I've spent with the game and the experience. And I know I'm not done yet, and I'm excited to finish it. Yeah. But the kind of what you're talking about, like it does feel that food metaphor just keeps coming back to my mind thematically of. We converse through food. We convey so much of ourselves and share with others through food. We mourn and celebrate and do so many things in and around food that that, like, again, the same way like Consumi kind of touched me in that way, I feel like this game is hitting for me in a very strong, resonating way.
Yeah.
And again, with my own culture, like so rarely do I see games introduce culture in such nuanced ways,
Mm.
and it makes me hope and believe in seeing more of that with both your culture, with my culture, with so many other cultures that we
Yeah.
don't see. And like, I want to see that. I want to share that. I want to celebrate that with folks. So thank you for contributing to that.
I love that.
And your team as well. Like, everyone's on all cylinders over there.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can I ask where you are? What happened recently in the game?
The last thing I am at is I'm about to meet some, like, I don't know how much I should go into, but I've just reached the city where you're supposed to meet your folks.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's So there's 3 villages in the game that you kind of go back and forth between. That's cool. That's a good spot. Yeah, and then as you see, we've introduced different types of foods from each town, which is also kind of a cultural specific thing.
Yeah.
No, that's good. You're in. Yeah. I like that place.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and I'm excited to finish the game. I'm excited for folks to play it. This game comes out on the 14th, correct, of April?
14th, yep, on Switch 2, Steam, Xbox, PS5, on all the things.
On all the things, great. Well, thank you, Eka, and thank you, viewers. We'll catch you on the next Save Point.
Take care.